You're the sum of your habits. I've always been amazed when people don't take the time to learn about how their body, their machine, the vehicle they have to live in their whole lives works. You gotta make it easy to integrate fitness into your life. It's the same thing with food. I cook my food on Sundays. And another thing is scheduling your workouts. If you don't want to be injured, you need to stretch. You need mobility actually more than flexibility. Mobility is the key.
I have one single question.
Which is?
Is this action or thing I'm going to do right now is going to help me live beyond 100 or not? If it's not,
there you go.
It's a no-go. That's it. So it's a very simple process, you know?
I think that's a great process.
Hi, welcome to today's podcast. Today I have the pleasure to meet and have a great conversation with Jeremy Kenemy. He's a real estate expert and someone who found a way to get the exercise and the fitness in his whole life. And we're going to have a nice conversation about that today. And I'm pleased to have you today, very thankful. And so let's have a chat about fitness and any subjects that you found relevant, my friend.
So, Jonathan, first of all, it's a pleasure to be here. We were introduced via a mutual friend. He had mentioned to me about your fantastic podcast, and he said, you know what, you should connect with this guy because you guys have a lot in common. And that's how we met, and we met very, very recently, and it's actually the first time we're having a conversation in detail.
Thanks to Rock Thomas, by the way.
Mr. Rock Thomas, the man himself.
Yes, he's the man.
Yes, you're correct. So, I have a fitness background for 25 years, and this is separate from my daily profession. I am a corporate real estate advisor, so I help Fortune 500 companies make intelligent real estate decisions. And I can tell you that despite a ridiculous schedule and working long hours and client lunches and suppers and events, and as you can imagine, the corporate world, I've made it.
I've been there, I mean, I've seen. I've done in my own personal journey. 15 years ago, I was like in that
world.
I would say chapter of my life, and so please continue. So I can relate very much.
You can relate.
Going out, having to force yourself to drink because people drinks, and I mean, I don't know for you, but that was my bullshit pattern.
I'm in corporate real estate brokerage, so food, alcohol, all these things are part of the culture, less today than years ago, but still. So I've sort of taught myself two things. One, I decided a very long time ago that if you don't feel well, you can't do well. And I've observed over the years that when you're in business, especially if you're doing high-level business with wealthy people will spend the first half of their lives working hard to accumulate wealth and become successful in their profession. But all the while that's happening, they're losing their fitness, they're losing their health, and then they spend the second half of their lives spending money and putting time into regaining the health that they lost in the first half of their lives.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah.
So as much as possible, I wanted to sort of avoid that cycle, and maybe I could give you a little bit of a background before I got into commercial corporate real estate. So at a very, very young age, I got the fitness bug. First of all, my parents are in excellent physical shape. At 75 years old, they go to the gym every day. They're cyclists. They're very active. And I kind of learned at a very young age. They got me a gym membership when I was 16, and I went to the gym and I would see these 70, 80-year-old men and women who were in good physical shape. And I realized that unless you're very unlucky and you end up getting a terrible disease or something that earlier than you should, you have the capacity to remain fit and healthy throughout most of your life if you do the right things the right way. And this is at a time back then when people who would work out regularly were kind of an interesting subgroup of people, right? It's not like everybody wasn't going to the gym 30 years ago. I've been training for like 35 years. I'm 51 now. And back in those days, we didn't have access to information like we have today.
No.
So for me, if I wanted to learn about fitness and bodybuilding and getting in shape and being lean and having energy and all that, I had to read magazines, right? So every month I would get
Like
Muscle
the
and
fitness
Fitness
magazine
magazine,
or
right? Or Flex magazine from the Weeder people would come out and I'd read it cover to cover and I'd start studying, learn about nutrition and protein powders and how to lift weights and how to improve my cardio and all this stuff. Anyway, so in the early years, that's sort of what I was doing. And then probably around 18 years old, I said, you know what? I'm really into this kind of fitness thing. I got in shape pretty quickly. I put on a lot of muscle mass fast. My cardio went up, and I noticed people started treating me differently. And I also observed that
but do
fitness was
you
kind of a secret weapon,
so do you feel like they were treating you differently because you look fit or because you behave differently because you were like more
both,
healthy and more
both.
confident?
Because what happens is, so look, when you're a young guy, typical young guy, what do you want? You want to put on muscle and be strong. So in a very short period of time, I got pretty fit and became very strong. And then after a while, you feel good. And
Absolutely.
when you think about it, there's parallels between. So I don't know if you know what it's like to squat 400 pounds when you weigh 165 pounds yourself, but when you have that weight on your back and it's pushing down and trying to crush your spine and you're fighting it and you manage to bang out 3 reps, it's challenging, it's difficult. But then because you become proficient in the gym at doing stuff that's tough, then in your life, when you have a sales job and your boss says, I need you to make 50 cold calls today, and you don't feel like it, you're like, well, I can do hard stuff. And then it translates into your life. So, as a mutual friend once told us, the degree to which you're successful in life is the degree to which you're willing to do stuff that's hard so that you can have an
Absolutely.
easier life.
Yeah.
And I just felt that fitness was like a secret weapon that I had, and it sort of grew from there. So then I went and I took courses and became a personal trainer. And look, back then I had multiple jobs. I was in school, I was studying. I did a Bachelor of Science in Psychology. I studied a lot of brain anatomy and physiology. I was very interested in how the body worked. I did personal training courses, and I was working in radio at the time. And then I became a personal trainer in my spare time, helped me pay for university. I trained hundreds of clients over the years, and I've always read up literature on fitness, nutrition, and it was strange because I noticed that in around 2002, when I got into corporate real estate, I noticed that everything related to traditional office work goes against
Yeah.
my objectives of being fit and full of energy and not having back problems and having good posture and being strong and just feeling good. So I noticed in my head, I was like, okay, I love my job. I love commercial real estate. I love the challenges the things that we do, the high profile deals we get to work on, the great people we work with. But I hate sitting and I just hate sedentary anything. So I was probably the first guy in Montreal 15 years ago to have a treadmill workstation. Like I was in the Montreal Gazette and they did a
Oh, really?
story on it. Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
really?
you could find it somewhere. It's a long time ago.
How did you end up on the newspaper for that? I'm curious.
I don't even remember. You know what it was? I
Like we're
think
doing selfie walking on a treadmill or?
something, a reporter, I don't know, a reporter found
Okay.
out that I was trying to integrate fitness into the workplace.
That's cool.
And then they came to my office at Place Ville-Marie at the time
Okay.
and we did the interview. It was kind of cool.
That's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. So I guess over the years, so I mean, look, this whole thing has evolved over time. I just, I have a very, very, very strong belief, and if I go back to the original story that I gave you of seeing older people who were in shape, had energy, could do stuff, it inspired me. And when I was 16 years old, I said, I don't care what happens, but I'm going to be fit my whole life. Not sure how I'm going to do it, but that's
You made a
important to me.
decision.
I made a decision, and I've sort of stuck with it ever since. So the question becomes, how do you do it? And that's where it gets complicated, right?
Yeah, how
Because
do you balance that with your day-to-day life, with your job, with your family obligation? I don't like the word obligation actually, but your family
we
life.
understand each other. So first of all, a human being, if you want to be good at something, you require discipline, but discipline only takes you so far. You have to structure your life so that you're the sum of your habits. We all have habits. Habits in how we work, how we speak to people, how we eat, how we train, how we sleep, how we whatever. So you have to organize your life in such a way that fitness is integrated into it seamlessly, right? You learned how to take a shower and brush your teeth, and you learned how to do these things, and you have to learn how to integrate fitness and nutrition into your life. So I have routines, and I have a sit stand desk at the office, and I try to take breaks every hour just to walk for a few minutes, and little things you can do at your desk to sort of straighten your spine out so you're not all crooked at the end of the day. And what I've observed over time is, you know, our medical system, as you know, is designed to treat people who are sick, but it's not designed to help people to not get sick in the first place, right?
Exactly, exactly.
And that's a huge, huge, huge problem
Yeah. And I
because,
would say another problem is that I think the culture, I feel that it's changing, but like the
yeah,
culture where like the government or our doctor will tell us what to do, you know. It's like if we give the responsibility to someone else of our own health. And that's a big problem. And I can see a shift in the people mindset. And that's so important to be like the CEO of our health, you know. It's the most important
I
thing.
totally agree. There's an old adage that I say to myself, an expression. If it's to be, it's up to me, right? And I've always been amazed. So I was always amazed when I would go to see a doctor, and there's some phenomenal doctors out there, obviously. And there's a lot of doctors out there who get it, and there's a lot of doctors who don't get it. You go in to see your doctor and you look at he or she, and you're like, okay, this person's like a health practitioner and they're not even in shape. Why are they giving me advice? Like if I'm going to go see a personal trainer, I want to see a personal trainer who's inspiring me, who's in shape. When I see the government where we live, I see the uh, health minister who's clearly not in shape. I'm like, really? Like, am I
Yeah.
very simplistic in my approach that the person who is the health minister should be, when I look at
Healthy.
this person, I should be inspired by this individual? The world is just very weird to me. Maybe I have a very simplistic view of things, but my view has always been so in recent years, I've gotten into anti-aging in a in a quite an interesting way, and I've seen multiple doctors, and I get my blood work done every year, and I don't they don't just look at three things in my blood. They look at like 100 different things, and sometimes I go to the States to get that done, unfortunately, because here you go to your doctor and you say to your doctor, "Hey, do you think I could get a certain scan of my heart, or do you think I could get full blood work, but could you also measure these 60 things?" And the doctor looks at you and says, "Well, you're young. Why do you need that?" And I go, "Well, because there might be a heart attack growing inside me right now,
and we
and
just
I
don't
got
know.
no idea, right?
Yeah,
You take
yeah.
my blood pressure, you go, oh, your blood pressure's normal. You listen to my heart, you go, okay, sounds good in there. And then I walk down the street, I have a heart attack and I die. And I'm like, because you have to look at stuff in detail. Same thing with your blood. After a certain age, as you know, your hormonal profile changes, right? So you're a man, your testosterone goes down, it's harder for you to keep muscle on your body, and it's easier to put on fat, and your energy goes down, and your drive and libido goes down if you're not careful, or you don't eat correctly and you don't train hard. You have all these people, and another thing too is posture. I'm always amazed when I go to the mall and I look at how people stand. I look at how terrible their posture is. Their right shoulder is up here, their left shoulder is down there, they're hunched forward.
You're
Um,
always.
you know, Obviously part of that is genetic, but part of that is
I would
also
say part of that. I mean, the major part. It's really like the habit that they have, and probably the education. Or maybe they don't. So why do you think like people they don't? Why they? It's just like they're not
here's what
conscious
I
about it.
think. So, have you ever met anyone who owns a Porsche?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, that person can tell you everything about their Porsche. They can tell you about the steering, they can tell you about the fuel injection, they can tell you about how many horsepower, they can tell you all this stuff. I've always been amazed when people don't take the time to learn about how their body, their machine,
Yeah.
the vehicle they have to live in their whole lives works. You don't have to be a doctor. I'm not a doctor. But I remember when I was a kid, my parents would buy me anatomy textbooks for Christmas
Oh, that's pretty
because
cool.
I wanted to learn that stuff. I wanted to have a basic understanding of anatomy and physiology, and I wanted to understand how the body works because I did a little calculation in my head that if this thing works well and this works well because this works well because they're interrelated, then probably it's better for everything, right? So there's a lack of education and there's a lack of prevention and there's a lack of interest, maybe.
Or maybe do you feel it's because I mean we're so used to have instant gratification and we don't see the effect for like like it's in such a long time that I don't know if I'm explaining correctly, but I mean let's say for example like working out, like if you don't work out today, you will not die tomorrow. Like the effect is not right away. So people they don't see the long term effect because they maybe they don't believe in it or they I don't know why, but
It's in psychology, you would call it temporal contiguity.
okay.
Okay. So the concept is you, something happens or you do something and then there's an effect, but there's a lot of time that goes by. So it's not immediate. So you don't connect the dots.
Sure.
And I think that that's part of it. Um, Look, at the end of the day, I said that you're the sum of your habits. So everybody needs a strategy for something. You need a health strategy, you need a strategy for your relationships, you need a strategy for your work, and it doesn't have to be that complicated. But guys like you and me, put it this way, you are constantly keeping track of the degree to which you are tired or energetic, correct? You're constantly keeping track of the degree to which you're hungry or full. You're constantly, like you'll notice when you get cold, like I'm in a cold office right now, I'm starting to get cold. My body's giving me feedback saying it's getting cold now. But when you're a fitness person, you have a constant kind of ledger in your brain of, hey, when's the last time I worked out? Oh, when's the last time I had a meal? When's the last time I ate something that was bad for me? And how frequently did I do that? Or did I have alcohol this week or this month or whatever? So for me, you need to have a constant awareness of the current state of your fitness and what activities you've engaged in the last 24 hours. Like in my mind, like I have a routine, right? So I'll do martial arts twice a week. I'll lift weights 3 times a week. And tonight I'm going to go biking for 3 hours with a group of
Nice.
friends, fat biking in the snow. So I know that if I get those workouts in, and I've already had a meal this morning, and I'm drinking some greens, and I know it's in plastic, don't tell anyone, but anyway, but you have a constant awareness of how energetic do I feel, how strong am I, what's my cardio like today? Like I did a 40 minutes on the heavy bag last night, kicks and punches to it's crazy cardio, and I was a bit tired, so maybe I'll take a bit of time off before I go to karate on Saturday or whatever. It just you're
But you,
aware
yeah, you're aware. You know, you have it. I mean, you have it in your thought process, like on a
yeah,
daily
you're
basis. You know,
conscious
you're conscious about it.
of
And
it, and
but I
that's
mean, to
key.
be conscious about it, I think it's because you put that on the top of your priority of values. You know, like
Yeah, because it's what I said before. If you don't feel well, it's hard to do well. So look, physical activity is I think it's statistically the fourth I think it's the fourth leading factor of global mortality now is like inactivity. And I think um, like I heard a stat the other day that said something like 80% of adolescents in the US, or it might have been North America, are not fit enough to go into the army. And I'm like, okay, so if you're not fit when you're 20, like when are you going to be fit? When your mitochondria
never.
are on fire,
Yeah,
your
yeah,
testosterone as a man is through the roof, like
yeah.
So I think a few things I've observed over the years. One, fitness, you need to integrate fitness into your routine. Two, you need to be conscious of what your level of fitness is and how you feel, and just become conscious of that. And I would also say there's a lot of things I could say about this. I could probably go on for a really, really long time. But to not make it boring,
No, no, no. I mean, that's. I'm curious. You know, I mean, and I have something to tell you after. So.
well, I'd like to hear about that. I think that as you get older, so if you think about the life cycle of how fitness works, you start off, you're in high school, you go to gym, you're young, you can go out, you can drink, eat what you want, your body doesn't care. Like you feel great the next day. You get a little bit older, you go into CJEP, you go into university, you notice you're still in pretty good shape, you're staying out late, and it's not a problem. But then you get your first job, and now you're sitting more. Most people are sitting, not everybody, but you notice as you hit your 30s and 40s, you're like, okay, well, I can't go out and drink anymore because my body doesn't like it as much. And I have all this stress from work and I got to pay bills and I just, the stress eats away at you and tires you out. You know, it sucks your energy. And then you have to be more careful about how you fuel your body and you can't get away with stuff the way you did when you were younger. And then when you hit your 40s and 50s, and then 60s, especially, one of the biggest issues is orthopedic issues. So those 400-pound squats you did when you were 18, now you're 50 and your back hurts, your hips hurt, your knees hurt, maybe your elbows hurt from doing 110-pound dumbbell presses. And when you're young, they don't really explain to you how that works, and you just feel invincible. But what happens is once you're older and you have orthopedic issues, then training isn't fun anymore because it hurts. So what happens when you stop training? What do you lose? Muscle,
Yeah. Sure.
strength. So
Yeah.
then what happens when old people lose muscle and strength? They get sarcopenia,
They get
they lose
weaker.
bone density, and then eventually, and if they're not seeing a physiotherapist or chiropractor or athletic therapist or osteopath regularly to make sure your body is moving the way it's supposed to move, well, you develop imbalances front to back, left to right. Your quads are strong, but your hamstrings are weak. All these things happen. and now you're walking all cockeyed,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And then guess what? You're 67 years old, you fall, your bone density isn't good, you break your hip if you're older, and you
Mm-hmm.
know that 30% of those people are going to be dead in a year, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
whatever that statistic is, I forget, but it's not a good one. So you got to say to yourself, when you're young, you want to build a basis of VO2 max and physical strength.
Mm-hmm.
You want to build as much muscle as you possibly can, so because you know it's in, unless you are involved in hormone therapy and maybe you're taking TRT or whatever you're doing, you're taking testosterone with your doctor or whatever you're doing, you're going to lose muscle mass and you're going to become weaker as you get older. We all age, right? Like we're all going to age, but
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to age at 100 miles an hour. You can age at 40 miles an hour,
Yeah.
right? So all these things kind of work together.
But
And
do you, I'm curious, like just to, so do you feel like, you know, going all in on working out like when you're young because you're strong, you're at your peak, that, going too far would be like bad, like, you trying to do like 3 reps at 400 pounds squat, uh, maybe you're hurting,
yeah,
maybe it's good, you feel strong and everything, but maybe that's, if you look for the long run, that's not the thing to do.
I think it really depends on your constitution, your genetics. So I've had some, I had a terrible water skiing accident 15 years ago, and I destroyed my left hamstring. And I've never been the same since. It's hurt my back. I have pain,
Mhm.
whatever. But my knees don't hurt me, my elbows don't hurt me, my shoulders don't hurt me. I've trained well and hard
Mhm.
most of my life, and I've been okay. But I'm only 51, right? So who knows
Mhm.
in 10 years, 20 years.
Mhm.
I think what I would say about that is people will say, well, you know, how do I begin? Well, you begin by getting a good personal trainer who makes sure that you train correctly, that
Mhm.
biomechanically things are
Mhm.
working well for you, and you should
Mhm.
go see some posturologist or someone who can take a look at your body and see if things are aligned correctly.
Mhm.
And I think it's something you have to curate your whole life. Your
Mhm.
posture through your athletic therapist, physiotherapist, osteopath, chiropractor, whoever works well with you.
Mhm.
And in parallel, I think it's important to do the weight training. I mean, my mom and dad are 75. They still lift weights and they're still in good shape.
Yeah, that's amazing,
But my dad had to get his knee, a partial knee redone
Mhm.
3 months ago, and my mom's shoulder is screwed because she's got issues because she's 75. So
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
feel like it's somewhat inevitable,
Mhm.
although I guess if you had unlimited money, you could go get these cellules souche injections.
Mhm.
You could
Yeah, stem cell.
stem cell injections. There's
Mhm.
probably all kind PRP. There's all kinds of things you could probably do if you
Mhm.
wanted to spend
Mhm.
unlimited money and you had unlimited time, and maybe you could fix some of those things.
Mhm.
But we have to. So to answer your question, I think moderation in all things is probably good, but I also think when you're young and stupid, you can afford to do dumb things, and your body will forgive you to a certain extent if you're training with a personal trainer and you're using good form. When I was squatting
Mhm.
for 400 pounds, I was still squatting with good
Mhm.
form. I wasn't
Mhm.
an
Mhm.
idiot.
Yeah,
I
and
would,
you build up to
you would
that.
build
You
up
don't
and you
start
would
and
do that.
yeah,
I
for
can't do
sure.
that today. My back
Yeah.
doesn't like it because of my
Mhm.
injury. But so, um,
But I like what you say. I mean, everything is in moderation, and for sure, I mean, fitness. You need to push your body to the extreme. I mean, that's what make growth happen in muscle. If you just keep pushing small
yeah.
weight, it won't do any difference. And
And you don't have to go crazy on the weights, right? So, what do I mean by that? You don't have to train with super heavy weights. It's
hmm
not necessary, but it's fun.
hmm
So, what I mean by that is when you're young, that's the time when, if you, sorry, I just want to make sure, I'm at work, so some people are trying to call me. I'm trying to just turn it off so I don't
no,
get,
no worries.
okay, I'm good now. Thank you. So I don't get interrupted. But what I'm trying to say is, I
You
don't
see,
think it's
that's what
bad.
I'm talking about, integration at work, you know? Like
Yeah,
now we're having that podcast and you're at work, and
I
that's
came
beautiful,
in
you
extra
know?
extra early. I got a bunch of stuff done because I put
Yeah,
some time aside for us.
yeah.
It's all about integrating stuff. Um, so I'm not opposed to training really hard when you're young. I think it's good because you're going to build that muscle. You don't have to necessarily go super heavy. The literature is very unclear about that stuff, right? So for muscle hypertrophy, you get 40 to 70 seconds of time under tension per set, and you're going to build muscle. And as long as you're eating correctly and sleeping correctly, if you train each body part twice a week, you're gonna get results, especially at the beginning. And some people do lower reps, some people do higher reps, but you're still putting tension on the muscle, and your muscle is going to react. And if you're healthy and you have good hormones, your hormones are supporting you, and you're eating correctly and you're sleeping, you're gonna grow and get strong. So, so you don't have to blow your brains out and go super heavy when you're young. And besides, going
And it's to
super
build a
heavy
habit.
doesn't, pardon me?
It is really to build a habit.
Yeah,
That's
that's
the
all it
most
is.
important.
So let's talk about habits.
Yeah.
So if you're a busy person, okay, I have 30, 40 real estate deals, corporate real estate deals going at a time. As I'm talking to you now, my phone is on fire. People are trying to call me, okay, to talk about all kinds of different stuff. So you have to be organized in your life. Last night before bed, I prepared my breakfast already. My coffee machine was ready to go. My clothes were laid out. I knew exactly all my meetings for the day. I knew where I was going to be. And my workout gear for Saturday karate is already ready. You got to make it easy to integrate fitness into your life. If you don't, it's the same thing with food. I cook my food on Sundays,
Oh, really? For the
most
whole
of it.
week, or
Well, my protein at a
okay?
minimum, okay? And because if it's 10:17 in the morning and your stomach is growling and you don't have food available, what are you going to eat? It's not going to be good. So make it
Absolutely.
easy. Bring your food. I bring my food to the office on Monday. It's in the fridge. Not all of it, but all my lunches are done. Okay? So this is what I'm talking about when I say organizing. And another thing is scheduling your workouts. So I guess it was probably Tony Robbins who said, when you think about achieving something, it's a wish. When you start planning it, it becomes possible. But when you schedule it, it becomes real. And so part of my journey was this: about 15, 16 years ago, I wasn't really personal training anymore. I was still working out. I was working like crazy in commercial real estate and other stuff. And I said, I'd love to go see a guy who knows more than me, a guy who could really help my fitness go from where it is to a higher level. So I was introduced to a guy named Larry Vinette. Do you know who Larry
Okay.
Vinette is?
No, I don't know.
He's super well known. He's got a company called Sculpture Physique. He's super
Okay.
well known on the internet. And I remember the first time I met with Larry, 16 years, 17 years ago, whatever. He would measure my body fat every time I would meet him. So I walk into his office and I think my body fat was like 12.7% or something. And he goes, "Okay, I got news for you. You're fat." And I'm like,
Ah,
"What? What do you
I'm
mean?"
12%. No, you're fat.
He goes, "You're fat." He
Uh,
goes, "Until you hit 10% body fat or less as a young, healthy male, I'm going to say you're fat." I was like, "Oh
okay.
no, I don't like this."
Fuck that.
And
Yeah.
then um, he said, "What I need you to do now is I need you to, for the next couple months, you're going to cut out carbs pretty much." He says, "You can have as many green vegetables as you want. So there's some carbs in there, and there's a lot of fiber, and there's vitamins and minerals." But he was like, "No fruit for you, no milk for you." He said, "You're going to eat high quality protein and vegetables almost exclusively for the next while." I was like, "Really? Like no rice, no potatoes, no." No, none of that. Nothing. Okay. So then I cut out the carbs. And I didn't realize it, but I was being introduced to kind of like a bit more of a paleo diet, sort of. And over a short period of time, training plus eating better
Eating.
and being
Mm-hmm.
more structured, my body fat went down and it went down and my muscles went up and up and up. And then I remember at one point I was down to like 6% body fat, which wasn't, I mean, I can do it, but it's not sustainable. But it just proved to me that with proper nutrition, you can be as lean as you kind of want to be. And actually, I got down to about 7% about 2 months ago just for fun. I just wanted to see if I could still do it, and I did it, and it was pretty cool. But you got to kind of get to know your own body. Like you got to know what body fat percentage is good for you, where you feel healthy, you have energy, and it's sustainable. And that varies per person because we're all different. Some people look at a chocolate cake and they gain weight. Some people eat 7 chocolate cakes and nothing happens, right?
Yeah.
So there's
Yeah. Everybody's
genetics. We're all different, right? You got to figure out how your body works. And so I'm just throwing it out there. Like if you were interested in a very high level personal trainer, someone who knows what he's talking about, look up Larry Vinette, and I can
Yeah,
give you
I'll
his
put it on
website
the.
in the show notes later.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah, he's great. And he also introduced me to a very interesting man named Charles Poliquin, who was he passed away a few years ago, but he was probably the most successful strength coach ever.
Okay.
A Quebecer who was very, very intelligent, read and studied all kinds of journals, taught himself different languages. He probably has more medal winners in the Olympics where he was like a
Oh.
strength coach than in different disciplines, probably than anyone. He was one of the guys who popularized fish oils 20 years ago when people didn't know what fish oils were. He was a very, very interesting guy, and Larry was good friends with him, and I ended up taking all of his courses or many of them and his certifications, and I learned a lot from Charles, and he was a very kind of special, interesting kind of dude. Anyway, so since that time, I've sort of continued to try and learn more and hone more. And in recent years, I've been more and more interested in anti-aging. I got very frustrated. I would go see my doctor and I would say to my doctor, I'd say, well, can I get these tests? Because I heard that there's a test called the Grail test where you can find out if your body has one of 50 different kinds of cancers in your body. Can I get this calcium test for my heart to see if I got plaques building up in there? Because, the things that kill people, heart disease, diabetes, um, neurological issues, Alzheimer's, these kinds of things. And then the doctors would look at you like, why does this young guy want all these tests? Like, what's wrong with this guy? And in my head, I was like, well, I want a baseline to know how I am now. So in 10 years or 20 years, if something differs, I can go, okay, well, when I was this age. So I have like blood work from 15 years ago when my testosterone was up here and I was feeling great. I was 5%, 6% body fat. So I have that. So it's something I can kind of look at in the future and say, okay, back then it was like this. And I ended up having to go to the States to get tests done because they're just,
It's more open.
it's much more open. And I mean, I don't want to knock our system here because our medical system in Canada and in Quebec has some really strong points. I know people who have undergone, like once you're in the system here, it's hard to get into it, but once you're in, it's pretty good.
Yeah, if you're sick, if you're really sick,
You're
it's
really
perfect.
sick. Yeah,
That's the thing.
it's
It's like
amazing.
if you want to prevent,
Yeah,
forget it. And if you have a small broken bone or something minimum, then you're on the wait list. But if you're
yeah,
really sick, then we got good doctor. But that's we don't want to wait being sick. Like Like that's the issue. Like we hear so many stories, like people that they find out that they have a big I don't know how to call that, but a big
Like
masses.
a growth. They have a
Yeah,
tumor of some kind that's inside
yeah,
them.
but I mean
And
prevention, like
I
we
know.
should. I mean that it's not new from the last couple of days. I mean, has been probably months and years that it's building up. That if
Yeah.
the person would have done a test, they would have find out,
Hmm.
way earlier before the cancer arrived.
I
So,
agree.
I'm a firm believer in that.
Me too. And what's funny about it is, and like I said, you go see your doctor and you say, well, I'd like to get a DEXA scan because I want to know what my bone density is, my body fat. I want to know if I have visceral fat that maybe is an issue for me or whatever. And they say, oh, well, it's expensive. If me as a doctor, I ask for too many of these tests, I'm going to get reprimanded. I'm going to get in trouble. And then you go get your testosterone done. And, you know, testosterone, well, at least in the US, they say between 300 and 1,000 or 1,200 nanograms per deciliter is normal and healthy. But there's people, if you have 300 as
Mm-hmm.
your testosterone, you could
Mm-hmm.
theoretically feel great. Chances are you don't.
Mm-hmm.
But then a doctor here can't prescribe testosterone to you because you're 60 years old and your test is low because you're still within the normal Homer Simpson range. So
Mm-hmm.
what I mean by that is I would ask my doctors and I'd say, okay, so like what's optimal? And they say, well, the normal range is between this and this. I said, the
No,
normal. Let's look
forget
at
about the normal
what's
range.
normal. Normal is Homer Simpson. I want to know what's an athletic, like an Olympic athlete at the top of their game, hormonally, what do they look like? I want to get as close to that as
Yeah,
possible.
that's the benchmark that we want to compare to.
Yeah, but they don't have those numbers. So, you know, it's just there's a lot of new technologies that have come out. So, for instance, everyone's been talking about peptides for the last few years, right? Peptides, chains of amino acids that when you inject them or you swallow them, it causes certain chemical reactions in your body to increase your growth hormone, your androgens, your testosterone. There's other substances that can help people to heal faster, and they all have these weird names, which I could get into, but there's no point. And believe it or not, some of these technologies were developed in Quebec
Oh,
in the
really?
90s.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So there's all kinds of anti-aging substances that people can take and things that they can do, and very few of them are really available here in our socialized medicine place where we live. The other side of that coin is that when you go to places like Florida or California, you can get anything that you want, but they're selling you hard, and you kind of don't know. It's a bit gray
Yeah,
market, right? You
yeah.
don't know, like,
Is that a good
is
product
it
or it's
good?
an
Is it going to
adverse
hurt me
one?
in the long term? The
Mhm,
studies that they've done have mostly been done on animals. Which ones have been done on humans? I read a book many years ago called by Dr. David Sinclair, Why We Age and Why We Don't Have to. And he was talking about taking a gram of NMN per day and resveratrol, which is the chemical compound in red wine that everyone years ago said, oh, it helps you live longer. And it's just interesting that now companies are selling these products 10 years later. There are studies on them, but what was the sample size? Who funded the study? Was it a double-blind placebo randomized trial that was done? I don't know. And most people don't know. And a lot of research that's done. So one thing that drives me bananas is when you're watching the regular everyday news and some idiot comes on and says, oh, a recent study shows that all-cause morbidity goes down by X% if you integrate exercise into your life 3 times a week and eat a low-processed food diet. I'm like, really? No way. Wow, that's new. Like, common people don't know anything about nutrition or fitness, and
But doctor doesn't know about that. They don't teach. They don't really
well,
teach nutrition.
it's it's
So,
it's
and
it's
I say
unfortunate.
doctors. I don't want to generalize. I mean, there's people that knows, and I mean, and
Yeah,
I'm far of knowing everything. And I actually one of the main reason why I decided to do the podcast is to be on
learn.
that learning journey and growth
Mm,
journey of like
I
like
agree.
and I feel like interviewing one person, one guest, one expert in one field every week will just like I'll be a sponge and absorb that because
I agree.
I feel it's so important and
I
people
agree.
need to be more aware about that. And
I completely agree with you. And nutrition is a so we all know that doctors don't get a ton of training in nutrition more today, and I think they recognize the value and importance of nutrition. Nutrition is a crazy, crazy thing. I personally believe that we don't really understand nutrition. And I just think the body is very complex. I think, a person will come to you and say, "Oh, what's the ideal diet?" And to that answer, my answer to that is it depends. It depends on you. It depends on your genetic makeup, your ancestry, right? And everyone who says they're an expert on nutrition, I don't know. I have issues with that. What I mean by that is if you are an Inuit
yeah,
and for thousands of years you and your ancestors ate super high fat, high protein, super low carb diet, it makes sense to me that your body's probably adapted for that kind of diet. If you live on near the equator, where you can easily grow all kinds of vegetables and fruits and corn and other things, then maybe your diet is more suited to higher carbs and maybe less fat, whatever. Um, but people say, okay, so what am I supposed to do? Look, I'm going to tell you, based on my experience, I believe that if you want to know how to eat correctly, I think that the first thing you want to do is stop eating stuff that comes out of a box. In other words, if you eliminate processed anything from your diet, just that alone, just that,
yeah. Sometimes it's eliminating what's bad. That it's. I mean, I feel it's the first step. It's like
I
eliminate the
think
bad
so.
stuff, keep, you know, and then you will see a difference. And to listen to your body because, as you said, everyone is different. I mean, if the Inuit is eating a certain type of food and now change it and see some reaction in his body, well, that's a feedback. Listen to it. So,
I agree. Like let's take so you'll see an Inuit person who lives in a big city like Montreal, and if this
actually, it's
person,
funny because I have an Inuit friend. I'm gonna send him that section. So,
yeah, if he's eating if he's drinking Coca-Cola, high fructose corn syrup, and he's eating, you know, uh, fast food and stuff, well, his ancestors were not eating that. It's not going to go well for him. Like diabetes and obesity are just going to be around the corner for that individual fairly quickly, right? Um, so, like I said, I don't think that we've got a real handle on nutrition, but I do believe that you need to drink a lot of clean, pure water. So at my house, all my water is purified, and I'm actually getting a whole house system put in soon
that's
because
nice.
when you take a shower,
Yeah, I mean,
all that stuff goes inside your pores. I try not to eat anything out of a can or out of a box. I try to eat as many fresh
even
vegetables.
beans, for example, like
I don't do a
lentil
lot
or
of beans because they're very carby, and I I don't particularly like that, me,
sure.
but I'm not against it. Um, I think if you cut out the unprocessed food and if you watch the quantity of food that you consume, and alcohol, as far as I'm concerned, is poison. Okay? And I've felt that forever. And the reason I felt that was when you drink alcohol, do you sleep better or worse
No,
afterwards? Like you fall asleep fast, but do you sleep deeper or better? Yes or no?
no,
The next morning when you go to the gym,
terrible.
when you go to the dojo and you engage in a sparring match with someone, do you have more endurance or do you have less?
Mm-hmm.
When you go to lift heavy weights the next day, do you feel stronger or weaker after you drank?
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
don't need 19 studies to tell me that my body has to work to detoxify that and it's not good for me. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't
Mm-hmm.
care. People used to
But
say, oh, a glass of wine a
yeah.
day is good for you.
But Jeremy,
Give
I
me a
think
break.
like you're at a young age, you shifted your identity to I am healthy. I am a healthy athlete. I'm so that identity just was you. So I feel like people they sometimes they don't have that as their main point.
So you just brought up a very important thing that I wanted to talk about today, which was identity.
Yeah. It's so important. That's the foundation, I think.
So we talked a little bit about discipline. We talked a little bit
A
about
bit.
establishing habits, but all those things feed into your identity.
Exact.
And one of the issues that people have is it takes a while for your identity to change. So, for instance, let's say you decide that you want to get involved in full contact karate. So, you go to a dojo, you get the gi, you start learning the different punches and kicks and katas and movements, and they eventually teach you how to spar. And then um, in the beginning, you have all these people who are really into it around you, but you're not part of the tribe yet. It's not part of your identity. But over a period of years, you become part of it, and it becomes part of you, and it becomes part of your identity. Same thing in the gym. So a lot of people don't like working out because they find it boring, they find it's difficult. Maybe they don't like going to gyms because there's too many people who are going to judge them and it makes them uncomfortable. But if you force yourself to go, look, everything in life that's worthwhile is difficult. And you learn about how to train and how to use the machines properly, and you start making progress, and then you make friends, and they get to know you, you get to know them. Eventually, your identity goes from I'm not a workout person to I am a workout person, and then it becomes your identity. And then when it becomes your identity, you will fight to the death to maintain it. Jonathan, you're a dude who's in shape, you're smart. If something happened tomorrow where you couldn't work out, you couldn't be in shape and feel good anymore, because it's part of your identity, you'll have a lot of cognitive dissonance. It'll drive you nuts. You will
Yeah.
do anything to maintain your identity. I remember I was personal training a lady once, and when I met with her, she was obese. Okay? Very pretty, obese. And I remember she had sent me photos of when she was younger, and she was very thin, looked healthy.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And I asked her, I said, so, kind of what's your regime right now? And she kind of told me what she did, and she doesn't work out, and I know she doesn't eat very clean, or she didn't eat very clean, and this and that. I said, do you remember a time when you would walk down the street in your early 20s when you felt good in your skin? You had energy, you felt good. You'd go out on a Saturday night with your girlfriends or your buddies, your boyfriend or whatever, and you know that you were turning heads. People would look at you because you were beautiful and you were in shape and people were inspired by you. She says, "Yeah, I remember those times." I said, "So, do you still enjoy that in your life?" And she started to cry. She was like, "No, I don't feel that way anymore." I said, "Okay." So I said, "At what point in the last 10 years did your identity go from being that person to being this person?" She says, "I don't know. It just kind of happened. My job's demanding. I have 2 kids now. I don't have a lot of free time for myself, this and that." And we went into it. And then I said, "Well," I said, "you realize you're having a bit of an identity crisis because part of your brain wants to be that old you. Part of your brain is this new you with all these responsibilities. So how can we work together by making small changes so that a year from now, a year and a half, whatever, we're not in a rush, you can feel more like that 20-year-old than you do now?" And it took some time, but eventually she lost a good amount of weight. Her energy went up. She got stronger. She started to get muscles in the right places, and yeah, so she's just doing a lot better. It's an identity issue, and that point that you brought up is absolutely critical in my mind.
But you see, like I'm gonna do a confession. So I have a very very strong identity, healthy identity, and I will never eat fast food. I mean, there's I mean, I can put a list of things that are must and some like I will never do. You know. So
Yeah.
but I'm struggling with working out.
Hmm.
You know that's right now, and I was like last year, like I was like super like disciplined. I was doing like I was really motivated. I had a stem cell injection in December,
Oh no.
and I was kind of forced to stop, you know, and so I stopped for a couple of weeks, and then I went back with a new coach, which was amazing, and I was really really focused, but like shit, sometimes life happens. So in the business, I had to put more time into it, you know, had to work longer hours, and maybe I didn't had to do it, but I thought I had. And anyway, so in the last couple of months, 2 months, I've been putting, okay, like business first, you know, because I felt that was the priority at that moment.
Hmm.
But so I have like, it's that struggling decision, like, okay, so do I need to stop? Like I'm feeling bad internally, like even like now I'm publicly telling it.
Hmm.
And but I think it's a struggle of everyday people, you know. So it is important for me, it's part of my identity, but in the moment, let's say when it's 4 o'clock and I told myself, okay, 4 o'clock is gym time. eh, Now okay, I need to reply to this client, I need to talk to my employees. So what would you say, like how can you either coach me, snap me, or help others, you know?
So let me ask you a couple of questions about that. So we all have our own internal prime time, the time in the day when we're most focused, when we could get work done, and other times when we have more energy and whatnot. First question I would ask is 4 o'clock in the afternoon the ideal time? For me, 4 o'clock in the afternoon is an hour before 5 o'clock. The volume of emails that comes in between 4 and 5 when people are trying to send you deliverables at the end of the day before they leave for the day is very high. 4 o'clock is not a wonderful time for me
Yeah,
personally.
yeah,
Me
yeah.
personally.
So I
Can
would
you do it in
say
the
last
morning?
year, yeah, but last year that's I mean that's what I did. You know, like 4 o'clock, I stopped, and I actually I kind of I have my gym here, and so it's very convenient. But it's a great way. So I work mostly from home, so it's a great way to kind of break the pattern between work and family time.
Okay.
And
Okay, it's
yeah,
like a bridge between work. So let me
yeah,
ask you this.
exactly.
When's the last time you had a training partner? Someone who can come and train with you at your gym?
So last year, I had every Monday a personal trainer coming to my gym, and I stop basically. Yeah,
And you stopped because you're too busy, because it's
because
expensive,
I
because
did my stem cell therapy, and then it was the holiday, and then I started with a new coach, but the coach was remotely. She was living in California, an amazing person, and yeah, and I got caught up in the business, and then I stopped the coaching, and so right now, I guess the first step would be to get a to get back with my coach, or I don't know. So
so yes,
I don't have a plan now.
that
Like that's the thing. So
so
probably it's not scheduled and it's not
you know
planned.
what you need to do. You need to plan the work,
Yeah,
and then you have to work the plan. So
yeah.
you know the first thing you got to do is get with your coach again because you need that accountability. And here's another thing you can do. Um, you can. I used to do this with certain clients. Okay, you have to get specific about what your goals are, right? So it's not like you need to lose weight, right?
No.
Okay, you if you're like most men, you want to put on as
Yeah, I
much
need to
muscle
gain
as you
muscle.
can
I'm
and be
Mhm,
strong and have good
mhm,
endurance. I'm gonna
mhm,
guess. I'm gonna
mhm.
presume.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you need to sit down with your trainer and set up some very concrete, measurable goals. And your trainer should do your body fat and figure out what your muscle to fat ratio is. and you set a goal with him or her to say, look, by this date, realistically, I want to gain 5 pounds of muscle. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to sign a little contract with you. And
I've done that 4 times,
and the contract is going to say
Yeah.
that if you weigh me, well, we do our weigh-in in 3 months, and I didn't meet my objectives, well, I'm going to have to eat a plate of dog food in front of you,
Yeah. Yeah.
or something funny
Yeah,
like that.
I've done a check like I think 5 years ago. It was like for 6 months on my fridge. It was a check for a foundation that was killing animal. I don't remember. I think it was like a whale or
Yeah.
like a very bad organization, and I
Hmm.
was like $1,000 check, and that just and if I was failing, I was sending that money to the foundation. So
That's a real
um,
good one. So you know what
yeah,
you need to
and
do. It's just so you're
but
having a
it's at
mental.
that the thing. It's really at that moment. Okay, right now I feel like okay, I need to work, it's like that's the priority. So it's like in that moment I just need to always put health first, It's like so that should be like always, 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 which is
It's
always
hard.
in my life. But for fitness, it's like
It's tough.
sometime if I'm like I'm gonna do it in 2 weeks, I'll be more like disciplined on that. So
It's very, very hard. One of the reasons it's hard for you is because you already look good. So in your mind, you're like, okay, if I don't train for another week, it's not the end of the world. If I,
but food, I don't slide on food, like food, it's like anchor in my mind. But gym workout, it's like, yeah, it can slide and I can come back.
so here's another thought. Is it possible that you're bored with your routine? And here's a thought that I have. I mean, would you ever, I can't believe I'm saying this, would you ever consider doing CrossFit? Would you ever consider getting into a martial art? Would you ever consider doing something outside of your regular routine that's also social and fun to achieve your fitness goals? Because training alone in your basement is okay, but it's not that fun. So I have a gym in my basement and I'll train alone. But I on purpose go to a gym. And not only that, X number of times a year I train in different gyms.
Oh, really?
It's in my agenda. It pops up. It says
Okay.
train in a
Same
different
thing.
gym this Sunday
Nice. Okay.
for variety. So you need to put some variety in there. You need to do things a
It's
bit
a good
different
point. Yeah,
because
actually
it's
it's a
boring.
very good.
It's not boring, but it's repetitive. Or you can have a competition with a buddy of yours to see who
But
can squat, deadlift, and bench press more. Whatever.
yeah, but I think the competition, that's the thing that was driving me before. I mean, I was setting, I was like signing up for a race or
Yeah,
for something, so I had to work out for something,
for sure.
or yeah. So I think that's a great. Actually, it's the type of stuff I kind of know a lot of different solutions. It's just like I need to okay, so to decide.
You have to decide, and you know what? Maybe you need a different coach. Just saying,
Yeah.
variety, right? Um,
But to see a coach in person, I see the difference. Like
but
that's.
but you don't even have to do it in person. You can do it online. It's better in person, but you could do it online, right? You could call a guy like Larry, and actually, I wrote down somewhere here his website. Yeah, sculpture physique dash coaching at gmail.com. Could call him
Okay.
and get a
Yeah.
consultation with him. See what happens.
Yeah.
He'll whip you into shape, trust me. Not that you're not in shape, but you understand. He'll get you back on
Yeah. Yeah.
track.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Were there
So
any specific topics that you wanted to cover today?
I was curious to know more about your habit. Like so you can you tell me more of your habit, healthy habit that you do on a daily or weekly or annual basis
Yeah,
that you're
look,
not talking.
you want to you want to regulate the number of meals you have per day. So I try to have 3 to 4 meals a day.
Do you
My
fast?
um no, because I don't overeat, so I'm hungry. I mean, yes, I have fasted. Um,
But
but
it's not part of your day to day.
no, I mean, I've done it. Of course, I've done it. I've done all kinds of fasts. I've tried all kinds of things. But no, because first of all, I'm so busy that I don't have a lot of time to eat, and I forget to eat sometimes. So for me, I don't need to fast really. It's more, did I get enough protein in today? Right? So I
Okay.
try as much as possible to get roughly a gram per pound of body weight, maybe a bit less, of protein per day. And I also have a regime of supplements. So I got up this morning at 5:30. I had a bit of chicken with some green vegetables and a small handful of nuts.
At 5:30?
Yeah.
Okay.
Um, and I had my fish oils and my vitamin D3 and my zinc and all my concoction of pills that I take, which I've taken for 15, 20 years. By the way, I haven't missed a day of work due to sickness for 12 years. I think I got a gastro once, so I had to work from home that day, and it really sucked. I got it at the airport in Miami. I'm pretty sure. Pretty sure that's what happened. But I pretty much never get sick.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's the future, but knock on wood, I don't want to jinx myself. But um, I I'm careful to get 2 to 3 liters of water in a day, even though I hate drinking water. I get my supplements in. I try to get my 3 to 4 meals a day.
What
Um,
about sleep? Like, are you good with sleep on being like always the same time?
yeah, so that's one of the most important things. So I go to bed at 10, 9:30, 10 every day. Um, Sleep is one of the most undervalued, most important things. That's when your body recharges and recuperates. If you don't sleep correctly, you can't think well and you don't have that energy to train hard. So I regulate my sleep. I'm very careful with that. Um, I stay away as much as humanly possible from any kind of like alcohol, drugs, stuff like that. Um, I'm not a, I'm not against having a drink from time to time. I think it's probably fun and probably fine. I don't love it, but I'm not against it. I think it's totally fine in moderation. Just don't do it often, or do it on a special occasion or whatever. Um, I really try not to eat processed foods, and I'm quite diligent with that. I have a sit-stand desk, so I try to stand half the day, sit half the day. Um, and I stretch a lot more now. Because I'm doing martial arts and I'm 51, the body gets tight and you need to stretch, man. It's when you're younger, stretching is stupid. And then when
No,
you,
it's not.
it feels like it is. And then when you get older, you're like, oh man, no, no, it
Yeah.
makes it, if you don't want to be injured, you need to stretch. You need mobility actually more than
Hmm. Hmm.
flexibility. Mobility is the key. And so it's really not, it's not rocket science. It's just making it one of your many priorities in your day,
Yeah.
right? Like I said,
But
if you don't,
but I like to hear that. I mean, how much do you do? Do you work a lot?
oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Like 20, 30 hours a week or more than that?
Of work?
Yeah.
Workout, you mean?
No, no, work, like business.
Yeah, yeah, I'm always working, man.
So you see, but you still take time for yourself, and you
Well,
take a lot
yeah,
of time for yourself, you know? So I think
you take
it's a,
time. Look, I gotta come in on the weekends a lot to catch up on stuff during the week. Like it's not,
yeah. So
you
if you have to put like one success, like factor, is it you would say that you're prepared for it, that your identity or I mean, everything is related, but if you had to put one, what is the,
it's it's having a running ledger in your brain, ongoing, 24/7 of how am I feeling right now? What have I done? What have I not done? And have this in your unconscious mind constantly percolating, right? It's the same thing like in your work, right? So you're looking at your email inbox and you're like, okay, I have this many emails that I need to respond to, and I've got this proposal to put together and this market information I need to come up with, and oh, I have this conference call with this group of people. Oh, I have a tour at noon in Laval I got to go to, and You're constantly monitoring your schedule, but you have to also monitor your fitness. Like, am I hungry right now? How am I feeling? Like, am I feeling good, bloated? Am I feeling strong? Do I have energy? Am I focused or am I distracted? This is a constant thing that you need to get in touch with. And I can tell you that people go through their whole lives and it's not even on their radar. Like they're not
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
noticing what's going on.
Yeah.
So the first thing is notice,
So it's so funny that you say that. So the way my brain work, it's like I have one single question.
which is,
Is this action or thing I'm gonna do right now is gonna help me live beyond 100 or not? If it's not,
there you go.
it's a no-go. That's it. So it's very simple process, you know?
I I
And
think that's a
yeah,
great process. We call it the Centenarian Olympics,
yeah.
as
But you see,
Peter.
like I'm telling you that, and I'm thinking from what you just said about my working out, you know, maybe when I maybe that's a question that maybe I should refine that question because, for example, if I'm not working out today, do I still believe I'm going to live beyond 100? Yes or no? Yes. Okay. I'm not. I'm going to skip the workout. You see. So maybe that's something to improve. So
I like your thought process. Um, I think I have really mixed feelings about whether or not we're going to live to be over 100. And and I
tell me
know we need
more.
to wrap this up in a few minutes,
Yeah,
unfortunately,
absolutely.
but
Let's finish on that. So what do you think about?
so people will always say, people who don't work out love to say this. Oh, I see that you're careful. Like for instance, here at the office, we'll have birthday cake day for everyone who had, and it's awesome. I love it. Except I don't eat the cake. So people will say, I know you're not going to have the cake. And then they say, okay, give cake to everyone else. And they say, you know, I know a guy and he used to work out 12 times a week and he ate perfect and never drank alcohol
And he
and
died at
he died of a
50.
heart attack at 45. And I'm like,
Yeah.
ugh. It's not about necessarily how long you're going to live. It's about the quality of your life while you're here. Look, you could get hit by lightning. I could get hit by a bus. God forbid any one of us could get cancer because it was genetically in us and we don't know. But we know that if you exercise and eat clean and you sleep correctly and you're not overly stressed and you have good relationships with other humans, you greatly increase the chances of having
Yeah.
a good quality life and living a long, healthy life. I always ask people, I'm like, what do you want the last 10 years of your life to be like? Do you want to be the grandfather who has lots of energy and can play with his kids, grandkids, nieces, nephews, whatever? Or do you want to be that old guy who looks like Mr. Burns from The Simpsons, all shriveled up, can't walk straight, has no energy, sits in the corner, watches TV all day, waiting for the Grim Reaper to come and take him away? I'm not interested in that. So, so no, I don't want that. The thing that concerns me the most is the pollution in our environment, in our water. I'm I think that the psychological well-being of people is really not the best because of social media. I hate social media, sorry. I don't like it. I think it's generally bad.
Yeah.
Not for everyone, but I think watching the news is like a terrible, useless thing.
It is.
I haven't
It
really
is.
watched the news for like 15 years. And I'm not out of touch with reality. I don't need to see the crystallization and concentration of the absolute worst possible stuff that happened on the globe today and be fed that 24/7. I think that I don't think that's good for my brain or your brain. So I'm a big fan of having a low useless information diet. I'm a big fan in eating clean as humanly possible food. I believe that a body in motion stays in motion. When you rest, you rust. So keep moving. And even, if you don't want to work out because you hate it, go for an hour or 45-minute walk every day at a minimum. Move your body. And I don't know what's going to happen with all the plastics in our water, and I don't know what's going to happen with radiation, and I don't know what's happening with all the Wi-Fi around us that we might determine in 10 years is really bad
Yeah,
for us.
yeah. All
And
the iPhone, I mean, all the Bluetooth,
yeah,
all
man,
the,
we don't know.
I mean, we sleep, I have a fitness tracker,
Yeah,
but I'm sleeping on it. Like, is
I
it
know, and
really
that's
good,
why I
you
don't have
know?
a fitness tracker because I don't know if it's bad for me or not. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe who knows? And
Hmm.
we're not going to know the truth for a long time, right? They used to
Hmm.
think that smoking was good for you in the 50s, remember?
Hmm.
So we're going to find out in 20 years that cell phones are killing us, or I don't know. We don't know, right? We don't know
Hmm.
yet. We don't have enough information.
Hmm.
So I guess I'll probably close by saying that I encourage you to become good friends with your physician.
Hmm.
I encourage you to push your physician's limits as to what preventive tests and care they can offer you. I highly recommend that if you don't have a workout regime, you go see a wonderful trainer like Larry Vinette or someone else who you have a good relationship with.
Hmm.
Take charge of your health. You increase the probability of not getting sick. And if you don't feel good, you can't do well in life. And life is not a rehearsal. So
Hmm.
take care of your
Well
health.
said. Well said, my friend.
I
Absolutely.
I very, very much appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
And thank you so much. And one thing I wanted to tell you, so when
tell me,
we discuss about, I said that my goal is this will bring me my life beyond 100. You kind of said something about like you don't believe. Like, do you believe we will?
it's because
I'm curious. Like,
I think that with AI, we're going to learn more about personalized medicine, and I like to think that we'll all be able to live beyond 100. But there's an opposing force right now, which has to do with pollution and other things in the environment, and I don't know which one's going to win out.
but you get to choose, and let's choose that it is possible.
It is
And when
possible,
I feel it
guaranteed.
is
It
possible,
is possible,
and
100%.
if we can continue to keep educated, to keep in that space, and to share the valuable information. I mean, there's so many progress happening right now,
Yeah.
and in the next 5 to 10 years, it's gonna blow our mind. So,
I welcome it all, and I can't
and
wait to learn more, and I can't wait to, to, to be part of it. I can't wait for the degree to which human beings suffer on account of old age and disability goes down.
yeah,
Because for me, age is kind of like a disease,
it
and
is
it
a disease.
afflicts everyone, and it robs you of your happiness, and it robs you of your hope and your energy and your. So if we can slow down aging, that would just be wonderful.
Yeah.
Anyway, on that note,
Thank you so much.
have,
Thanks for
that
sharing
was
your
fun.
experience and wisdom. So,
Pleasure. Good. Have a great
Jeremy, it
weekend.
was a
Keep in
pleasure to
touch.
have you today.
All right, sir. Speak to you soon. Thanks, man.
Yes, sir.
Bye.
Thank you.